Welcome to the official Catchup podcast. We're back. We've been off for a couple of weeks. We'll get to that just shortly. But Chris is with me as always. Chris, how are we doing?
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, as you say, we've been off for I think both of us have been busy. You've been down in London. I've been doing FM research. I don't know how much I can give away, obviously. Obviously, non-disclosures and whatnot. But let's just say, like at the start of there's a kind of a cut-off. I think people know that much. And I've went well beyond the cut-off, probably pushing my luck. Obviously, there's been major transfers that I've tried to squeeze in. Obviously, Ali McComb going back to Kilwinning. I've kind of, probably one of the bigger ones, Nicky Lowe signing for Clydebank. That probably wouldn't have made it into the patch, but yeah, I've kind of been a wee bit sneaky, as is some other guys trying to get them through as sort of major transfers, but they're not really. But as far as I'm aware, it's kind of up to date at the moment. But the nature of non-league, as everyone knows, it's very difficult to keep up. There's probably a few things I've missed, simply because just way too many teams, no transfer window in non-league. So yeah, but any football manager people listening in that play the game, I've tried my best. I'll say that much.
I'm going to need to restart my buff save now if Alan McComb's back, because I'm not allowed to have favourites, but Alan McComb is definitely in my top 3 players at the buffs. So
not just McComb though, yeah. I'm a bit mad at you, Ben. Gave me the details like a day before the deadline.
I mean, it's your job. You should have came to me.
I've been asking. I've been saying it
But we got there.
Season.
We got there.
We
so
got there
in the end. We got there in the end, and I started my save. Then Ali McComb signs a few days later. Now, great to see Ali McComb back at the buffs. I heard he was going to another team, but he saw sense in the end and came back to his. I guess it's not his home club because he was about bloody 2 hours away. But it's great to have him back in the team. He played in our game last on Friday night. One is a penalty and things like that, just adds a bit of difference. So I'm great to see Ali back and fit and playing. So, but I'm sure we'll get plenty to talk about. There's probably more to talk about the buffs later on, but we'll start off probably in the Lowland League as ever. So obviously there's a full card of fixtures, some interesting results. It's all change again at the top of the table. We'll start on Friday at 2 p.m. Celtic B 2, Hearts B 0. Firstly, 2 o'clock kickoff on a Friday. For me, that is absolutely diabolical. Just shows the kind of contempt that the likes of Celtic B are maybe actually showing the league. I think you can't have that game at 2 o'clock. Whether it suits Hearts and Celtic, I don't care. That game, if you're a lower league team, has got to be played either Friday night, midweek, or Saturday. Or Sunday, if we've had that on a few occasions. I think for me that's a bit poor.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear obviously the reason behind it, like it was second string to the women's game, and Airdrie were playing, at home on Saturday and all this sort of stuff like that. But it's just not great, not for the fans. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh well, fans in inverted commas or whatever, but it's poor. It's poor. I mean, I don't know so much about Hearts in terms of how it works with them in terms of their fans and season tickets and stuff like that. But Celtic fans certainly pay for, I know a few that have went for the whole package. They support the B team, they support the women's team, they support the senior side. So, I mean, it's chucking money. You're giving them no chance if you're playing 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, unless you can get time off work or whatever. But most people are working at that time. Very, very poor from each side. And I didn't care the reasons. I mean, You've seen, obviously, Celtic move fixtures to Parkhead. I mean, Celtic Rangers are playing today in a cup final. Parkhead's nothing's happening there that I know of. I mean, promote that game a wee bit better. Get them down at Parkhead. Support the young guys before the cup final, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the following that a team like Celtic has and Rangers and Hearts, I mean, let me promote it. I'll get fucking a few hundred in Celtic Park for that game. But to me, it's just a shocker. Both clubs obviously agreed with it, but it's a shocker. That's. I mean, there could be an excuse that some of the young lads might be on the bench or whatever for the senior side in the cup or whatever it might be. But I mean, that's just poor for the fans, and I just don't think any other club would get away with that. If you're looking at maybe, say Cumbernauld Colts wanted to play Berwick on that time on a Friday. I mean, Berwick would probably look at them like, what are you guys on? And plus most of the guys at this level would be working as well. So they've got away with it because they're young, they're full-time teams. One rule for one and another for the others, and it's just poor. Really is poor. In terms of result, obviously Celtic B, good result, but I mean that whole, to me, it's a complete farce. And obviously, a lot of people chime in, obviously, about the B teams. They don't care about the league and all this sort of stuff. I mean, like I say, with Celtic's falling and Hearts falling, they could have done so much more to promote that game if they wanted to. But playing at 2 o'clock or 2 in the afternoon on a Friday, shocking. It's an absolute shocker.
I mean, if it definitely had been like the school holidays or like a bank holiday or something like that, then you'd have been like, fair enough, that maybe an alternative for entertainment for families and things like that. But yeah, I think if you're going to show the league the respect that you want, and you want to be in it and you want to be a part of it, and there's this big clamouring to have Colts teams, we've obviously been probably more positive than others on this podcast about the B teams and kind of accepting of them in this podcast, and that probably goes back to even when Mozza was here. We were, but we will be critical. Like, I mean, that's it. We will be critical when it's deserved, and I think this is absolutely a point in time where, whether the Lowland League sanctioned it or how it worked, I think you've got to be critical of this decision because it's poor. It's got to be done in keeping with the league. And as you said, there wouldn't be a game such as Berwick or Cumbernauld Colts or Broomhill versus Calais, for example, played at that time of the day. So I don't see why we should be doing that or allowing that for Celtic B. But I guess it's one of those things that the power that obviously Celtic and Rangers obviously have in Scottish football is obviously, for me, dictate that, and that's how we've got to where we are. So we won't dwell on that too much. As you said, it's a good result for
play on a Friday night, Parkhead. Get the fans in. I mean, that was a simple solution for that. Again, I'm not sure how some of the younger guys might get a chance today, on the bench in the cup final or whatever. But Friday, with their follow-on, they could have promoted that so much better, and that's what's annoying me because we have been critical, especially Hearts, that they don't really promote games. Whereas, in fairness, I think Celtic and Rangers do a wee bit more. But I mean, yeah, they're not really doing any favours to the league with stunts like that, to be honest. And yeah, I don't know the background. Obviously, it's agreed between the two clubs. I don't know how much say the league get in it, but it's a shocker from all involved.
We'll move on swiftly from that one, and we'll move on to Saturday's games. We'll start with the game between Tranent Juniors and Dalbeattie Stars, a 4-1 win for Tranent. Again, I think we've talked about plenty. The kind of routine result. Dalbeattie still kind of languishing at the bottom. They have managed to pick up a point, I think, since we last spoke, Chris, against Civil in a 2-2 draw. They've got a point behind Edinburgh Uni and a game in hand. So you've got to look at it and say that game between Edinburgh Uni and Dalbeattie Star is going to be essentially a cup final for relegation.
Yeah, we kind of called it quite early. I look at the Dalbeattie squad now. Obviously, I'm looking because I have to, as I mentioned earlier, Football Manager and stuff like that. And I do wonder if I'm starting to think that they have a squad now that potentially could keep them up when I compare them to Edinburgh Uni. They got that really good draw against the Civil Service Strollers. They've had a tough run of fixtures, obviously playing your likes of Tranent, and Tranent have been kind of hot and cold at the moment, but there's probably more wins in them than not. And it's always different goal scorers, obviously guys like Nicky Reid, Ewan Bald, Cammy Ross. So it's very tough still for Dalbeattie because of the quality of the league. But that game against Edinburgh Uni coming up I think that will be the relegation decider. And as I said, at the moment, I think Dalbeattie are looking more likely to stay up than Edinburgh Uni at the moment. But in fairness to Edinburgh Uni, they are at home, and I think that's going to be a massive game for the bottom end anyway coming up. But you never know. I mean, there's fixtures before then, so if one of them can maybe sneak a point here and there, it could be very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Dalbeattie's game in hand is at the moment, but certainly they've got that to I guess, have up their sleeve if they're really looking to try and make something before then. I assume. I can't remember when the next Edinburgh Uni game is, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've just not seen anything. I think that draw we talked about between Civil and Dalbeattie, that gives them a bit of hope, I guess, Dalbeattie, that they can go and perform and they can go and get a result. Because let's face it, a draw at this point in the season for Dalbeattie is a good result because they've been at the bottom for so long. You mentioned the fixtures that they've had in the last four. They've played the likes of Tranent, Spartans, EK and Broomhill. I mean, good size, tough size to play. Maybe lesser to extent Broomhill at the moment, but on their day, a good team and Civil again. So that's all teams in the top kind of half of the league. So they'll have good fixtures coming up on that basis. They'll probably get to play the likes of Gretna, Cowdenbeath, Shire, Cumbernauld, Colts, etc., who are kind of closer to them in the table, and they might be able to get a result somewhere if they can perform. And I think looking on kind of social media, there seems to be a bit more of a belief and a bit more of a kind of want to go and play football and want to go and do well. I'm not saying they didn't before, but I didn't see it from them beforehand. But there seems to be a bit of spark. Maybe it's come off that draw. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, good luck to both teams.
Franny Kilpatrick, who we were aware of, is always positive. I like it.
Positive guy,
really positive about Dalbeattie. Surprising move actually when he moved.
Definitely, yeah.
But wanted to test himself going higher and from the west of Scotland, obviously, and I really like Franny. He's always kind of interactive. He's always interested in this level, and he's positive about us as well through DMs and whatnot. So. And I love that positivity. I mean, it's very difficult when in a struggling team to remain positive, but I've definitely seen some switch in Dalbeattie amongst all the guys, but especially Franny. So don't want to play favourites, obviously. Edinburgh Uni have always surprised me. I always kind of put them towards the bottom. They had a really great season last season, but I think it's definitely going to come down to that game now, which winner takes all. It's old-fashioned 6-pointer when it comes up, I think.
Oh, 6-pointers. Can it be a good 6-pointer? Next game then, Spartans 3, East Stirlingshire 1. Spartans do what Spartans do. Getting wins, getting results. Still undefeated for God knows how long. I can't remember the last time Spartans lost. I think they're doing pretty well, getting the results against the teams that they're supposed to be beating, and they're probably still to play a lot of the teams at the top end of the table. I think like the reverse of what we just said about Dalbeattie, but obviously they're sitting top now, and it's all changed. The games in hand and things like that had the Colts teams etc. are starting to level out a bit more. We're starting to see kind of the true shape of the table. Well, not Spartans are going to drop more points. I'm not too sure. They're looking pretty solid at the moment for me. But you look at it, you get Celtic B sitting there with 61 points in a game in hand. It's Stirling Uni with 61 points in a game in hand. So we could be looking at 1 point splitting 4 teams within the next couple of weeks once the games level out, and who knows what will happen. And obviously it's about the champion club. Whether or not Rangers or Celtic B win the league, it's going to be about that champion club. And we'll touch on Rangers B just shortly, but I mean, great result for Spartans. Don't know what's happening at East Stirlingshire. Seems a bit up and down. Go through a spell of getting results and then back to kind of losing again. And I guess it's one of those that they're down that bottom of the league. They just need to get to the point where the season's over and reset, I think, for me.
Yeah, Spartans, I think they've still got Tranent and Stirling Uni to play. So that's definitely, they'll be the key matches coming up, obviously. And Spartans are playing like a team that want to win the title. Really good in terms of the defence, really good in terms of scoring goals. Obviously, Cammy Russell has been amazing. Blair Henderson, obviously, he's a complete bagsman. The midfield's great. The defence, I think that's one thing that's caught my eye more than, because we know that obviously Jamie Dishington, Cammy Russell, Blair Henderson, they'll get goals, as well as obviously Reece Armstrong and guys in the sort of middle. But Kevin Waugh, Jordan Tappan, even the young boy Josh Lang, and Blair Carswell, they've all been solid. The whole team's been solid. And one thing I noticed, especially I think it was when they scored their second goal one of the Spartans boys ran straight over to Doogie and was like, yes, and you like to see that, obviously, given the encouragement from the manager. And it does feel like there's something there at Spartans in terms of going for the title, and I've not seen it for a very long time. But it does feel like they're going for this now, and yeah, they're doing really well. And even guys like Kevin Waugh, I done the team of the month this morning, and Kevin Waugh was in the DMs, kind of, jokingly sort of, what have I got to do? Am I a joke to you? Because he was very unlucky not to feature, to be honest. And I said to him, I'm very conscientious of the fact that a lot of Spartans guys have been in the team of the month the last sort of few months, obviously, and I don't want to play favourites, but to be fair, they're deservedly so. I mean, everyone in there is on merit, but the two boys at Berwick, I've felt I've really created a decent partnership, and Alfie Robinson, who plays for Cowdenbeath, has been magic this month as well. Guy I kind of called out really early when I saw them, but yeah, he's been on good form. But I said to Kev, we'll see how next month goes. But Kev always a good supporter of the podcast, and always like hearing his views on football and that. But the Spartans are flying, and I'm looking forward to seeing them next month, hopefully against Dundonald, and I think I'll get to the Stirling Uni game as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. But that's probably when they'll start losing when I turn up. So we'll wait and see about that. East Stirlingshire, in fairness, I think they were in a bit of form. A few wins on the bounce. It's just tough. There's always an edge to that East Stirlingshire Spartans game. Spartans, I think, were all over them. They were denied a penalty and kind of got one for the third, but they hit the bar a few times, or the woodwork a few times. So it's tough. When you're East Stirlingshire. Obviously, Andy Rodden, who was such a great player for them, was loaned in, and then he got sent back, and then Sean Brown's having to play left back again, who's doing really well. I kind of put him in midfield for the team of the month, but it's a bit of a reshuffle. They've brought in a few guys on loan, East Stirlingshire, and they have a really good track record, especially under previously Dell, but now Sandy Clark, of really pushing these young players on to get them ready for higher up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with these young guys. But yeah, I'm not worried about Shire. I think it's just been a tough spell for them in terms of what we said before the last time we were on the podcast. They had won a few games and it kind of went back to losing. They really picked up sort of this month, but you're losing to Spartans. There's no shame in it, really.
No, that's it. The Spartans top of the league for a reason. They're a quality side, and Shire have been that team, as we said, they've been kind of up and down, and no shame, as you said. And I think Spartans look good for the win, and I think if Sandy Clark can maybe make his own stamp and build on the good performances they've had this season and the next season, then they'll be in a much better position. But it's going to be tougher for Shire regardless, I think, moving forward. Next one then, Gretna 0, Civil Service Strollers 4. Good convincing victory for Civil. Gretna back to that kind of negative kind of results and not really getting anything out of games, and performances don't look that great. Obviously, they've played against kind of more difficult sides and the likes of Rangers B, Celtic B, etc. In the last few weeks, they've also played Berwick, who have found a bit of form as well, and getting that kind of toiling again. Another team in that bracket I've just kind of try to get the season by with and get on and move on to next season.
Yeah, Alex Thompson, the chairman's moved on. But I've probably been heavily critical of Gretna in the past, just with the current management, but certainly in the last sort of few years that we've covered the league. But there's just too many ins and outs there. And I would actually be really worried about Gretna if they weren't already safe. If they're, if Edinburgh Uni and Dalbeattie weren't in the position they're in, because, I mean, they lost a lot of good players, and some of the guys they brought in, with all due respect, are not of the same quality, or certainly are not of, proven as some of the guys they lost. So Gretna, I think, are just sort of dwindling down the season. Probably, in fairness, I don't know in terms of money, but I would imagine they're not going to be pushing at this point in the season. They know they're safe. I'd expect them to be on a bit of a losing streak from now, because they've not got the team that they started with at the start of the season. Some of the boys are still there. They have some good players, but you do wonder if is this going to be a continuous issue with Gretna where they bring in good players, it doesn't work out, they're away after 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then you never hear from them again. They bring in someone that you've probably not heard of, a young player, from Motherwell or something like that, So I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one with Gretna. In fairness to Civil, they've been really patchy lately, really, really patchy. But a really decent result for them, obviously. Ennis Lawson, who we've talked up quite a lot, got a couple of goals. So, it's a good result for Civil. But I do worry about Gretna, what the focus is going forward. You could probably excuse it for this season, because obviously I think the season's done for them. But yeah, I mean, if they continue to conduct business the way it is, I don't see them being ever being successful or ever hitting the top end of the league, because it's just you can't function like that as a football club. There's too much change, too much. In fairness, I think we do know that there is issues in non-league with travel and whatever work commitments. You can kind of forgive them for that, but the amount of sort of player changes and the amount of ins and outs of that club is just far too much, and it's been that issue for a long time at Gretna. That would worry me going forward, because it's always positive at the start of the season. They always have a good team, then it just disappears. Not unlike some other clubs, but with Gretna, it's seems to be a massive issue.
Yeah, I think that Michael McIndoe's going to have a tough job in his hands, certainly next season, because you're going to look at that Gretna side and they're probably going to say be more changes, probably players leaving in the summer. You're going to have to completely rebuild that team. And the other thing that Gretna will have is they're going to be in the same kind of market for players as the likes of some of the West of Scotland teams. Even in the first division, for example, the West of Scotland, I would say they're probably similar kind of markets. And what's going to be more attractive to somebody, for example, who's based in Glasgow? Could they go and play for a Rutherglen, or could they go and play for a Kilburnie or a Cairn, who are kind of sitting towards the top of the first division just now, for example, or play at a team kind of towards the bottom of the Lowland League? So you're even seeing guys like we mentioned, obviously Alan McComb, and he's originally from that neck of the woods, but he's preferring to play his football up here. And I don't know how far he lives to Gretna, but that's an example of a player who's preferring to travel. I mean, obviously you've got guys like we mentioned, Franny, who's doing the kind of the opposite, going from Ayrshire down to Dalbeattie to play. But that'll be the difficulty for me, is that can they build a squad that's going to be competitive in the Lowland League next year? I personally don't see how that will happen. And you know me, I said it from the very beginning about Gretna at the start of the season that I expected them. I thought they would potentially get relegated. I think they were going to be closer, and I think, like you've just said, it's probably true. But if we didn't have Edinburgh Union Dalbeattie having such a poor season, I expected a lot more from Dalbeattie. Obviously, when Jordan Wilson came in, I thought he would be a good coach. He'd be able to do a good job there and keep them kind of relatively safe. That obviously hasn't worked out, and they're toiling. They're trying to correct that. Edinburgh Union had a decent season last year. They kind of finished out of the relegation zone and looked like they would probably do that again, but I don't know enough about what's happened at Edinburgh Union this year to know. But I mean, one of them's going down this year. If either of them who stay up gets their act together and Gretna don't, then for me, they're the team that's going to probably get relegated next year. But it'll all depend on the recruitment. I think that's going to be massive. And I think get a bit of stability and build a team. And because for a bit they did show spells of been decent and started to climb, but they've gone back into that kind of that free fall and losing games. But it'll be interesting to see what happens next season. Next game then, Gala Fairydean Rovers 2, Bowness United 3. One of those mid-table kind of nothing games for me. It's a decent result for Bowness, who have been kind of on a bit of a losing run, not getting the first win in I think 5 games or something like that. So they'll be obviously delighted. Gala, a team struggling, I think 4 losses on the bounce now, but again, just in that kind of bracket of get it over with, let's move on. I don't even think any of these teams are in cup competitions really at the moment. They can even focus on look at something to be kind of positive about from a season. They're all kind of, I think, out of. I don't know if it's maybe the South Challenge Cup. I can double check, but yeah, it's a bit of a struggle for those kind of teams.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a complete collapse from Gala. I mean, they were leading 2-0 a nickel brace in the first half, and then it wasn't until like the hour mark that the Bonus sort of got into it through Grant. Then Walker scored about 4 minutes later, and it was a late winner in fairness. But I mean, you can't give up a 2-0 lead in any league and expect to be winning games. And yeah, game of two halves, that one, I think. In fairness to Bonus, Gala are a weird one because we have praised them in the past. They've been kind of doing well, but they've kind of fallen off a wee bit more than. I mean, there's some clubs that I don't know, you kind of switch. They switch form with other clubs like Cowdenbeath, for example, and Shire went on a wee bit of a run, and the sort of middle of the road sort of clubs seem to change form here and there, and I think that's what we've seen. But you can't give up a 2-0 lead, in any league and expect to win games. And they've been beaten right to death, in fairness, but yeah, not great for Gala there.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's obviously been a few goals, probably exciting for the fans in that regard, but for me, it's just a game that's kind of a bit meh. May move on. Next one then, Edinburgh Uni 0, Cali Braves 1. Another routine win, I think, for me. Probably a lot closer than I'd expected, personally, from Cali Braves. Thought they would have been good enough to put a few past Edinburgh Uni, but certainly the expected win, I guess, from their perspective.
Yeah, I listened to the space that the Braves put on the two.
What is that?
It's just them commentating on the game. They done a podcast as well, like the Cali Braves podcast. I listened into that. Two guys that obviously know their stuff as well. Trying to take our spot, I think, with some of the pyramid talk, but I'm only kidding.
Cali Braves, get them.
I'm only kidding. No, from what I've heard, excellent job on the podcast. The space, I don't know. I think they were in my brain a wee bit because did we not talk about that
we
a
did,
few months ago? About spaces in football
we can't
games.
Start one because it looks like we're copying them.
Yeah, we never started that one, but I did remember saying something about that a few months ago. But no, the commentary was really good. In terms of the game, I think it was a bit lackluster from Braves. Obviously, only winning 1-0. I think the big takeaway is, especially this month, is Ross McNeil. They signed him. He's not kind of been the goal scorer or the main man that you would expect that he used to be. Simply because I don't think he was starting as many games, but now we're seeing him. I don't know if this is through injury or if it was just kind of getting him back into, the change of setup or whatever. But he's starting to sort of get games now and settle, and he's certainly scoring goals, Ross, and we know he can. So, in fairness to, he's got a bit of competition in Jamie Watson as well, because it was a bit of a weird one. Jamie Watson was kind of the main goal scorer at the start of the month, and then Ross McNeil's kind of came in and got the vast amount of goals as well. So Braves are always an exciting team to watch. Always a massive fan of how Ricky Waddle sets them up, and obviously a wee bit of a shout out to John Guthrie as well, because I think he's playing out of position. Sometimes he's playing, I think he's playing at right back, and he's obviously more of a sort of midfielder. So there is a wee bit of that going on as well, where Ricky's trying things also, and then, but I mean, you look at the guys that they have that are doing really well, like Scott Forrester, Jamie Walker, Luke Main, Zach Butterworth's a guy that kind of probably goes a wee bit under the radar, but always does well. Mentioned Mark Kelly about 1 million times, but Ross McNeil scoring goals. Braves, no worries. But like you said, I probably would have expected them to put a few past Edinburgh Uni. Edinburgh Uni might be able to take a wee bit of heart of that. I did mention if they can get a result here or there before the Dalbeattie game, could be interesting. But yeah, fair play to the Braves. It could be an interesting one for Edinburgh Uni. I mean, they have conceded a lot of goals this season, so only getting defeated 1-0 off a Brave side that can score a few, you could probably take a wee bit of heart from that. So that will be an interesting precursor to anything that happens if they do get a draw or a shock result here or there before the end of the season.
Next one then, Cumbernauld Colts 1, Cowdenbeath 0. Another just I'm going to keep saying this, unfortunately, and it doesn't mean to come across as negative if it is, but it's just another one of those games. The seasons are done for both sides, and it's a good result for Cumbernauld. They lost 2 in the bounce and get back to winning ways against Cowdenbeath, who are in a kind of similar kind of form, like a couple of wins, losses, win, loss. That's the kind of the form of these teams around the kind of middle of the pack now. I think you can look from about 6th in the league down to 17th, and they've got very little to play for at all. And I mentioned the South Challenge Cup earlier on, and I think there's only out of the teams that have got something to play for in that space, in that gap in the league. If you're looking at it, it's only Cali Braves that have got a stake in the game in that cup, and it's all the teams at the top end. I suppose East Kilbride are probably in that bracket as well, but EK and Cali Braves are the 2 teams that are kind of out of the title race and still get something to look forward to, whereas the rest of the teams are just playing till the season finishes. It must be hard to motivate players and really want to play when you've got nothing to play for so early on. We're only just about finished in February, and we're talking about teams having nothing to play for and have done for probably the best part of the 2023.
The most remarkable thing, and I've said it a few times, is the fact that Cowdenbeath have only conceded 35 goals this season. It's remarkable considering where they are in the league. They brought in Dan Watt, who's pretty much their main target now, and we have seen the results pick up from Cowdenbeath. They never lose millions. It's always a 1 or a 2-0. They don't concede. Defensively, they're brilliant, and that's why obviously I've mentioned Alfie Robinson. I think he's been really solid for them. But fair play to the Cowdenbeath defenders. I mean, I think they're just missing that piece. A goal scorer, and Dan Watt could be that guy for them. Obviously, it didn't happen yesterday when they played Cumbernauld, but Cumbernauld are an on-off team as well. I did hear, in fairness to Cowdenbeath, that Ryan Adamson kept them out that second half. Ewan McPherson, who's a sort of stalwart for Cumbernauld Colts these days, really good striker. He had a few injuries earlier in the season. I really like Ewan, and he does get a fair few goals for Cumbernauld, so it's good to see him back and scoring as well. So, it's a weird one. Cowdenbeath are such a strange one. I mean, I can't even think of looking at a league table and seeing a team concede they're on levels where maybe I think they've conceded less than Rangers B, for example, and they're probably on close to Spartans for goals conceded, and where they are in the league's just mental. I mean, that must be a rarity in football to see that they're probably maybe 4th-5th the best defensive record in the league, and they're 16th or something. So I mean, that is just mental to me that Cowdenbeath are that far down.
Yeah, if you look at you mentioned Rangers B have shipped 48 goals this season.
Yeah,
and Cowdenbeath have shipped, you say 35. Celtic B 39, Stirling 34. You know what I mean, and Spartans 30. So yeah, you're right. They're right in amongst that top defensive record, and fair play to them. They just obviously can't get the goals, and if they can get the goals, then there's obviously something there in that squad that they've built. For I guess for Maurice Ross, it's been a year to find out what the Lowland League is about, and maybe took it for granted a little bit at the start of the season. Found his feet, got them playing relatively well, because I think at the start of the season we were talking about them as relegation candidates before we realised how bad the likes of Dalbeattie and Edinburgh were going to be. So
they do play. To be fair, they do play like a league side, and what I mean by that is it's a lot of long balls up to your target man, your Dan Watts, the big sort of 6-foot striker sort of thingy. So I mean, it's not always easy on the eye, and that's probably where they suffer in the final third. They could probably maybe be a wee bit more safer in how they play, but I mean, can't argue with the results the other end of the pitch. You know what I mean? But yeah, if they just scored a wee bit more, do you mind that? I'd put them up there if they had a proper run of goals in the team. I mean, you can't just rely on your big target man. I think that's the folly of some teams. They just rely on the big target man to get goals. You need to get the goals in midfield. You need to get the goals. And we've seen it a lot more this season with Spartans. That was my criticism of them. Didn't really create enough in midfield. We're seeing, obviously, Bradley White, Reece Armstrong getting in amongst them now, and yeah, good teams have goal scorers all over the pitch, and they can do stuff from set plays as well. Cowdenbeath, I think if they crack that, they could actually be a really decent side.
2 games left in the Lowland League. The first one we'll go to is East Kilbride 2, Stirling Uni 2. Close game. Stirling Uni had the lead twice. They'll be disappointed to drop the points, I think, given they had the lead. EK are just being just difficult one for me to talk about, I think, at the moment. I'm just disappointed so much in what's happened to East Kilbride this season. Really did think they had it in them to do well, and as I say, one of those teams in that bracket of kind of nothing left to play for. They do have the South Challenge Cup, like I mentioned. Stirling Uni absolutely still going for the title as far as I'm concerned. I don't see why they're out of that conversation. They've got a game in hand. If they'd got the win yesterday, they'd been right in amongst it. But there's still loads of football left to be played. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out for Stirling Uni.
Yeah, well, East Kilbride could have won it. Obviously, Neil McLaughlin denied from the penalty spot. Neil McLaughlin, he was in the team of the month. Regardless of that, I think he's been one of their key guys to get the form going again, as you would expect. You know, he's a talented player. Kyle Connell's a bit of a weird one. I mean, when he first came in, he was in amongst the goals, and then the last sort of few games, you've not really heard from him. Again, it's probably a problem of not taking their chances. I think Kevin mentioned that in his interview. I think they could have been well out of it against Stirling Uni had they taken their chances. But I mean, you could say similar to Stirling Uni on certain occasions. But yeah, you're right about Stirling Uni. They're right up there. I don't know when the script changes of Chris when he. Maybe it already has, where he's like, right, guys, we can win the title here. We're in a title fight.
You've got to be saying that now, surely. You've got to be saying that. You've got to. I mean, Chris is like a great coach, great manager. You won't need to motivate those guys. They'll know themselves that the opportunity they have here is to go and be that uni team. We know what it's been like over the years, rather, the kind of naysayers about all the uni teams and the football kind of snobbery you have about uni teams. We've obviously been massive advocates of them and the work that Chris has done. They've got a clear path to do that, with also the Buck situation being done and dusted for them as well. So they've got to believe themselves. They've got good players. You mentioned it before. They'll be fit. They'll be energetic. That they'll have that bonus of training every day with the players that the other teams won't, apart from Rangers and Celtic, obviously be. But the likes of Spartans and maybe Tranent don't have that luxury of being able to do that extra training and get think about things and prepare and be in the right shape to play. So I don't see why we can be. You can't be rolling any of these teams out just now.
Yeah, one thing I will pick up on East Kilbride is that I was kind of called out for being a wee bit too critical of their goal they conceded against East Stirlingshire. I think I've always said that, like, any criticism it's not personal, it's football. I mean, I'm not criticising players for being lazy or that, but I mean, if you look at it, let's put it this way, one of the guys I know from amateur level, he said, he messaged and said, you're spot on about that. I would have been raging at that at Sunday League level for conceding that goal. They just didn't press enough, I think, and it was just an observation. I mean, the goal was great from East Stirlingshire. I think some of the Shire fans took it the wrong way as well, like, it was a great goal. But look, we're a podcast. We're known for our, I guess, being all brutally honest. We have, I think it's different with us because we do know some of these guys, and maybe on occasions guys can take it personally from our comments, but it's never meant as personal. It's just, I guess no one likes criticism, do they? I mean, I don't like criticism either, so I can see their point of view, but yeah, don't get angry with us. I would say, I mean, again, it's an observation, and a lot of the time I always feel like players know themselves that they could have done better. I mean, certainly a team like East Kilbride, I always get called out for saying that they're going to win the title. They're a good enough team that they should be higher, and I think everyone knows that. I don't have to really point it out. I mentioned something on the last podcast about you only need eyes to see. I mean, obviously I wear glasses, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I just hope no one takes anything personally. I mean, again, whether it's about football, I think 100 times it's out of football, isn't it? Really, Ben. I mean, I don't remember ever. Did I mention anything that with football? I don't think so. I mean, it's a football podcast, but I just don't want anyone to take the huff was or whatever, because it sometimes happens. But yeah, all I would say is, you're maybe in the wrong game if you're taking a huff over what two guys say on a podcast. But yeah, thanks for listening for my TED talk there, Ben.
I think it's a good point to raise, and I think I've seen, I guess, from two sides. There's two sides to it, and I think one, you can maybe be overly positive about somebody that you know, as well.
Which we try and avoid as well, Ben.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you can be. You're probably going to be tougher on the people you don't get on with or you don't like as much, maybe, and you're probably going to give the people you do like a bit less of a ride and probably top them up a bit more. That's probably natural, but I think for us on this podcast, like you said, we're honest, but we've all been negative about the people that we do know and the teams that we do know and the teams that we like and things like that. We can do that. But we can also be positive as well. I think that's what makes it a better podcast, personally, from being involved in this. The podcasts and articles and things like that you can read that are just kind of overly nice and on the fence a lot of time can be a bit boring at times and can go run out of patience. And people might say that we're boring, but if you're listening, then why are you listening at that point if you think that? But
I've always said, Ben, sorry to interrupt you there, but my DMs are open. A lot of people have my phone numbers, and I've certainly been checked a few times on things I've said, and probably yourself, Ben. But
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think it's difficult with players, especially because you never know what the manager's saying to them, how they want them to play, and it's difficult for the managers too because we have seen instances where Cy Ferry, for example, where his team's not playing the way he wants, and it's frustrating. And then obviously we're probably giving him a bit of stick on a podcast, but also I guess probably a wee bit different with Cy because he's trying to say, didn't he listen to the outside people or whatever? But yeah, I mean, it's football, isn't it? Everyone's got an opinion. Agree with it, yes or no. But yeah, anything. I've always been the same. I've always said the same for years and years and years. But if there's ever an issue and we've maybe got something wrong, because we're human, we can get things wrong. Message us. Don't have to fall out over it, or we're all adults at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think someone said to me a few weeks ago, made a comment, I think maybe last month or so, and said to me, there's no friends in football. I think I found that out the hard way myself, personally, in the last couple of weeks. And maybe that's something that people maybe have to think about, is that, yeah, we know people and we get on with people, but really, is that what it is? We're here to talk about the football. We're here to maybe not make friends, but we do also have contacts and people we do like and things like that. But it can go both ways, and that's it. They can equally be as critical of us, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But maybe, as I say, I think I got burnt there personally in the last few weeks, and that just was quite hard to take. So I think I'm maybe taking things at a different view now, that looking at some people in different ways, because ultimately I'm here to do a job firstly for Kilwinning Rangers, and then do a job for this podcast and talk about it. And whatever people believe or not, people tune into this podcast and listen to what you and I have to say. Whether or not people respect our opinion and what we talk about or what we know about football, it doesn't really bother me. I don't do this for the numbers and the I do it because I'm passionate about this level of football, and I like talking about it, and I like talking to you, and I like interacting with fans and having a laugh and having a joke, and this kind of podcast for me is the kind of podcast I like to listen to. And other topics, it's not just about this level of football, whether it's golf, whether it's UFC, whether it's whatever else I listen to, the kind of interview type things that you see in online and YouTube and stuff like that. So I think it's one of them. It's all about everyone's got opinions, and you just have to respect them, and that's the important bit. We'll say nice things, we'll say not so nice things about clubs, and we always make a bit of a laugh and a joke about Beith and all that kind of stuff, and that's what happens. It's all done in a lot of times. Yes, yeah, there'll be some situations where you'll run into clubs and individuals because that's something maybe went over a line somewhere, and that's, I think, for me, like I referred to there, the situation that I was in, it kind of feels like something that went over the line, and it having to roll back from that. So it totally can happen, and people are allowed to call it out. But we're not saying you don't do that. Come and have the chat. I mean, we also would welcome anyone on this podcast at this level of football if they didn't agree with what I'm saying. Come on and discuss it. I mean, we'd absolutely.
We've asked a few people on in the past that have failed to come. To be fair, some have turned up. I think what I always say this: if I'm criticising you or being a bit harsh with a club, it's only because I rate you. You'll notice I'm not as hard on Dalbeattie or Edinburgh Uni because my expectations for them are far lower compared to an East Kilbride, a Spartans, a Tranent, now a Stirling Uni. So my expectations go up. If I see what you've done last season, you know what I mean, or I can see that your squad's improved, and you're not performing to how my expectation or your fans' expectations are, people, I'm going to call it out. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be being true to myself as being nicey and all pally with people. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make enemies. I don't think you're trying. Well, sometimes you are trying to make enemies, Ben. Sometimes, but it's not our intention to try and piss people off. But just that's where I'm coming from. I'm very. I wouldn't say I'm overly harsh. Sometimes, I always mention Tottenham.
I think honesty is the important bit. It's all about being honest about the situation and reading the game as it is. And like you say, we're not out here to create enemies. Whether it happens because of something we say, then that's on them. I think for me, a lot of time. But 9 times out of 10, I can go to games on a Saturday and maybe having said something about a team that the Buffs are playing, for example, or said something down the line, and either nobody's called me out for it, or we've had a laugh and a joke about it inside the park, and I've walked off and shook hands at the end of the game. And I mean, that's the kind of situation that you're in. It's not as if it's properly.
You just reminded me of something, and I absolutely laughed at this because it was hilarious. We did get called out on a point, and I think I can't remember the boy's name, but he calls us out every few months, I guess. What was it? Tough night for the official catch-up because Darvel and City lost or something. So I think they were the what was it? The cash outs in October. I laughed at that. I really did because I thought it was funny. I mean, but it's true. We did call it early. The problem with that. Sorry, we're getting overly sidetracked, and we're probably towards the end of the loan. But
Berwick fans will be raging. We haven't talked about their game yet.
The problem with that is, I tell you what the issue is. We're kind of, I wouldn't say there's a pressure, but when we do a season preview and we look at the squads, we're looking at them way early in the season, and because of the nature of non-league, Clydebank could go and sign 10 different players that are of massive higher quality, more likely Darvel or one of these teams. But you know what I mean? I mean, the landscape completely changes throughout the season. It's not, it's not just, the transfer window shuts in September and that's it. Or, we've seen the amount of changes in so many teams the players have brought in. So it's very, very hard. I think it's harder to predict a non-league team winning a title than it is in, League 2, League 1, Championship. Not so much Premiership. Obviously, it's probably between two teams there. But so a wee bit, it's difficult. We try our best, but it is really difficult. And plus, you're talking injuries, you're talking about players leaving, work commitments, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's so unknown that early in the season what's going to happen. Not trying to excuse myself for the predictions I make, but I'm just pointing out it is very difficult to. My favourite's the favourite at the time. It changes, obviously.
I think on that point, there's still loads of football left to be played.
Yep.
Nobody's ruling out the likes of Darvel, for example, to win this. I'm certainly not, and we'll touch on the West of Scotland probably just in a bit. But like I said, nobody first seen them going on a run where they beat fucking Aberdeen, and the Scottish Cup. Let's be honest, like that was never foreseen. They've been one of the most consistent sides in the league so far. The bit about Brecon, I think that's an interesting one. They still got a game in hand, so there's still not. It's not like as if that's like out the woodwork yet, and that's dead and buried. That's just one result. But anyway, as I mentioned, the Brecon fans, Berwick fans, will be sitting here patiently waiting. We're nearly an hour into this podcast. We still haven't mentioned their result of the weekend: 3-0 win against Rangers B. Turn around for Berwick, five wins in the bounds. And that's one against Rangers B, who, for me, still got a massive chance of winning the league. But yeah, fair play Berwick. It's a great result. Barely lost a goal in that time as well. I think it only chipped 2 goals in 5 games, which is a massive turnaround. I did not expect this at all from Berwick.
Kevin Waugh, that's why you're knowing the team of the month, mate, because David Ferguson and Michael Travis have been solid. They're keeping Jamie Piper out the squad, who's a fantastic defender in his own right. Stuart Malcolm has a really good problem there. The fact that he's got 3 solid centre-backs that are doing really well, keeping goals out. Antel in goals is fantastic. You've got all the boys scoring, obviously, Lewis Allen, Liam Buchanan as well. So Liam Buchanan, he got a wee bit of stick from Craig Spence earlier. I got a wee bit of stick for not having him in the team of the month, even though he's been on the team of the month on a few occasions. But yeah, he's doing really well, and it's one of those things I always bring up. My criticism of Berwick was the fact they don't score enough, but they're winning games at the moment, and that's fantastic. They're doing fantastically well, and to beat a Rangers B side that was right up there, but I don't know what's happening with they're bleeding goals at the moment. I think that's their issue. But Berwick it was a bit like last season. After Christmas, they started, going a bit of form, and it seems to. It must be so frustrating for Stuart Malcolm. You kind of want that form at the start of the season that leaves you in a good position towards the end, but it seems to be it's a flip thing where they start turning up after Christmas or into the new year, but. And they have signed a few lads up for next season as well. So I'm positive about Berwick, but yeah, they need to maybe start earlier. They're doing and stop turning up after the new year to decide they're playing. But in fair, they've been brilliant recently. I could have had any one of the guys in the team of the month for Berwick, I think.
This is their focusing on the league. This is where it's got them to. So fair play. I mean, I'm probably not massively popular in Berwick just now, so I'll let that move on. And that rounds up the Lowland League aspect of podcast. Right, we'll move on into the East of Scotland League for Saturday. Blackburn United 4, Pennycook 2, Broxburn 2, Oakley United 2, Dundonald Bluebell 0, Linlithgow Rose 1, Musselburgh Athletic 0, Hillabeath Hawthorns 2, Socket Juniors 2, Crossgates 1, Tynecastle 0, Haddington 1, and Valeiden 0, Jeanfield Swifts 8. We'll run through them quickly. I guess Linlithgow Rose is another win. They're looking great for at the top.
A decent win, especially away to Dundonald, a kind of harder place to go, obviously. I think there's a few kind of shock results there. Obviously, Blackburn United beating Pennycook 4-2. Pennycook are on a wee bit of a slide at the moment. Oakley United getting a 2-2 draw away from Broxburn is an excellent result for Oakley to try and stay in it. A big shock is obviously Musselburgh Athletic getting beat 2-0 off of Hillabeath, considering how Hillabeath have struggled recently. I think shocks all over the park really there, but one that's probably not a shock is Socky, obviously beating Crossgates Primrose, simply because Socky have been on an amazing form. I've not really talked about them in depth like we used to recently, but they've been on an excellent run, doing all they can to potentially catch Linlithgow Rose. I think it's probably not going to happen for them, but they've been excellent. Socky, got to give them credit. Club I need to get to as well. So I'll wait and see. Hopefully by the end of the season I'll have seen them live at least, maybe at an away game. But yeah, some really decent results for clubs near the bottom, Hillabeath and Oakley United especially.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Socky. They're still in the South Challenge Cup as well. Got that to play for. They'll get Cumbernauld on Saturday, which will be, I think, a great tie. I think from I think Cumbernauld Business Hockey would have been a great one to go even personally. We've got Maryhill away up in Glasgow, so excuse me, I'll be at that. But if we both make it through, then that Salky Buffs game is probably destined to happen, into it. Let's be honest. Still wear the scars of that game, but we'll touch on Cumbernauld just shortly in the West Scotland side of things. Elsewhere, then in the East of Scotland, one we probably want to touch on in general, I think, rather than results, is the Syngenta situation. Obviously, Syngenta having folded in the last couple of weeks, there seems to have been let's call it a lift and shift from Syngenta to Camelon in the first division. There seems to be some sort of fallout that's happened within the kind of board and ownership within Syngenta, certainly. People resigning right, left, and centre, and then, as I say, 4 or 5, 6, maybe 7 players going to.
It's got to be a record. Got to be a record for the amount.
Going to Camelon and good players at that, no less. I've been massive advocate of the likes of James Finlay. He moved to Camelon. Camelon they got a point against Lochorn Welfare on Saturday, but yeah, very strange situation, Chris, isn't it?
Yeah. Conscientious of time. We always kind of go over with these return episodes, but basically, I think it's just a case that everyone jumped ship. They took all the players with them. Syngenta now, I think, are just going to go as a youth team, but they're kind of interlinked with Bonus Athletic now, so I don't even know if there will be a Syngenta juveniles. That wasn't really very clear, was it? But the manager left. Gordon Wild's now kind of co-manager at Camelon, and all the players left. I was surprised that. I mean, it was like pretty much their whole first team, and I did ask the question, what would happen to some of the Camelon players that were there? Because I mean, it's a bit of a sore one if you're a Camelon player waiting to get essentially replaced, in terms of quality. But then they announced like maybe 5 or 6 guys left as well. So, it's not much more to say other than I would say the people, the backers of the club at Syngenta left, switched to Camelon, and then basically the boy that pays the Syngenta players' wages said, "Come here, I'll pay you at Camelon." I think that's what the case is there. From what I gather,
I was gutted because I thought that.
You thought you were getting some players,
I thought James Finlay was going to be available, and being a West player, I was like, that's the kind of guy we could do with. But obviously, there was something already cooked up in the background. And
I'm shocked it all went. I'm literally shocked that almost the whole team went.
I guess from their perspective, they've obviously had a fairly successful season at Syngenta. They were looking good to win that second division, for example. So they probably were looking at we would like to stick together. And I mean, they're not going to do much, I think, this season, but they're going to, if they stick together for next year, there's no reason why they can't win that first division. As far as I'm concerned, they're a good side. And I'm not sure what kind of deals they did sign the players that did move across, whether it was a kind of to the end of the season plus another season, for example. I assume that would be the purpose. I wouldn't imagine they'd be moving for another 3 or 4 months, for example. I don't see the purpose.
There was a weird one actually. One of the keepers, I can't remember which one, but I don't think it was Lewis Duffy. Sorry, the boy's name escapes me, but he was actually on loan to Camelon from Syngenta, so I don't know if he's still on loan or if it's now a permanent deal. But it's very, very odd. There had been a few Syngenta players moved to Camelon around the sort of Christmas period, so I don't know if that was all sort of happening beforehand, before everyone else jumped, basically. But a lot to digest there. But certainly must be some sort of record from one transfer between one club to another, I would imagine.
Right, we'll move on quickly then and cover off the results in the South of Scotland League. There was looked like pretty much a full card for South of Scotland.
For once. Crazy.
For once, yeah. Impressive. Calibrave's reserves 5, Wigton Bladnoch 0, Mid Annandale 3 versus Mid Annandale 3, Upper Annandale 0. Is that like the Annandale Derby? Is that like a derby, the Annandale Derby? That's what's
Good
happening.
result for the mids. I'd expect
mids.
them to beat them. Yeah.
I didn't know that was the name, but fair play. Newton Stewart 5, Nithsdale Wanderers 0, St Cuthbert's 1, Creetown 2, Stranraer Reserves 2, Lockhart Thistle 3, and there was a
Cup game.
Cup game as well between my favourites,
Lochmaven.
No, Abbey Vale 4. It's all we play for, I think, in the league, certainly when it comes to the South Scotland League. There's only been 12, 13 games played. Creetown, Lockhart look like teams that are kind of finding out. Abbey Vale got the games in hand, so they're not out of it by any stretch. Mid-Andale not completely out of it. They've probably got a little bit more work to do, but certainly got the games in hand as well that they can maybe start to fight back. So plenty of football to be played, obviously, in that league, given where they're at in the season. But yeah, it's one we really need some expert to come and tell us a bit more about what's happening down there, because I don't know too much about what's going on. But
one thing I will say is it was some crazy result for Cali Braves beating Wigtown 5-0, because I don't know if they've improved, if they've maybe got some more guys in the new year, but I wasn't really expecting much from the Braves. To be fair, Wigtown are not one of the better tightest sides in the league, but yeah, a good result for Cali Brave Reserves, considering they're kind of sometimes on the end of those types of results themselves.
Exactly. We'll move on then to the West of Scotland. There was some games in the West of Scotland League Cup that we'll touch on briefly. Auchinleck 0, Glenafton 0, Auchinleck winning 3-0 on penalties. Clydebank 2, Cumbernauld 0, Neilston 1, Rossvale 1, and it was 12-11 on penalties. Rutherglen 2, Craigmark 3, Shotts Bunnacord 1, Gartcairn 2, St Roch 6, BSC Glasgow 2, Forth Wanderers 0, Drumchapel United 1, and Kilwinning Rangers 3, St Cadoc's 3, and Kilwinning Rangers winning 4-3 on penalties.
Ali McComb scoring the winner, I heard.
Ali McComb won the penalty.
Right, okay.
It's back to 3 each. Thomas Collins scored the penalty, but as I said earlier, great to see Ali McComb back in the lineup. Obviously, it's all new at Buffs Park. We haven't even spoke about that yet. Chris, new manager's in charge. Chris Aitken, a guy that we've obviously know very well from his time at East Kilbride, and it's good to have a good buzz about the place. Around Buffs Park, there's a feeling there back that for me wasn't personally there. I think I was a bit scared with football up until that point, and was a bit kind of probably fed up with it all, and the kind of bureaucracy and politics. It becomes a bit more like work, I think, a lot of time, when it's negative and not as positive, certainly. But yeah, interesting results in the cup. Surprised that the kind of Auchinleck drawing with Glenafton. I thought they'd have enough there to beat them, but getting through in penalties, I think Auchinleck sounds like Andy Leishman's had a bad injury and he's going to be out for most of the next wee while anyway, and that's going to hamper them. They brought in Mark Fisher from Troon, who I think was potentially third choice at Troon, maybe. I'm not or maybe second choice. I'm not 100% sure, but I know they signed Dale Burgess in the summer from Beith, and certainly he's an able deputy, but he's no Andy Leishman, and that'll be a big miss for them. Clydebank doing Clydebank things now. I think they're flying Clydebank, absolutely flying. Moss got them going grey guns at the moment.
Nicky Lowe helps as well, obviously.
Nicky Lowe coming in helps. I mean, and the boy from Stranraer, is the boy Easy. He's Palace, the boy from Palace. He's signed as well. So they've made some interesting signings that will absolutely help them going forward. And not a lot more results that were, I'd say, overly surprising. I think a lot of it routine, and the cup, the draws on Monday night. Yours truly will be filming the draw and producing that draw live on YouTube. Please plug for the West Scotland YouTube channel. You can watch that around about 7 o'clock on Monday night. So,
do you just want to touch on Kilwinning then, since you guys were playing in the
go
cup?
For it, go for it.
Obviously, you mentioned Chris Aitken. We've said on this podcast, and I think from what I've heard, obviously, in articles and whatever back in the day, or back at the time, I should say, not back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, but a massive shock when he left East Kilbride. We often pondered whether he should have had, more time, certainly allow him to manage the cup final at least. You know, I thought he'd done great, East Kilbride. So when you appointed him, I was quite happy. I thought it was a really good appointment. I think Chris deserves a chance at management again, considering how well he'd done at East Kilbride when he was in charge himself as manager. But yeah, and obviously, you know, someone like Ian Durant coming in as second as well, a lot of experience. I'm actually, I wouldn't say I'm as probably excited as you, Ben, but I do see that being a quite an interesting appointment. See how it goes in terms of. I don't know about this season. Obviously, I think you're probably looking at maybe trying to get away from relegation, mid-table, get as far as you can. But certainly next season, I think they could push. But I don't know. We'll wait and see. I think that, you know, you mentioned Ali McComb, but certainly one massive thing for me, probably for you as well, Ben, was Thomas Collins re-signing. Yeah, I see the smile on your face already. So you mentioned feel good factor. How one guy, O'Brien, who's he? You never get. Is he a youth player?
Elliot O'Brien's a youth player, so
okay.
On that front, Kieran Wood was in the lineup to start on Saturday, and on Friday, and Elliot was on the bench. Our 20s were playing, but Elliot's a left back, and Woodsy, unfortunately, I think I had a bit of a niggle for the last couple of weeks, and he's played through a bit and did the warm up, and just didn't feel like he had anything to give. And
I check the team lines, like, and if I see a name that I don't recognise, I'm
it was like it was very last minute. I mean, I had the list, I think, preparing a graphic for the social media, and I got a phone call from the other side of the park from Lauren, who's our club secretary, and my wife, of course, to say, we had to make a change. Elliot's coming in for his debut, and I've got to give a lot of credit to Elliot. He's younger, was probably expected to sit on the bench on Friday night. The 20s were playing at the same time, but given where our squad's at with injuries, we're absolutely decimated with injuries at the moment, and guys playing through injuries well, and Elliot wasn't expected to start and come in and done. I think he came off in 70 minutes or something like that, but he done an absolutely great job, and no worse than any of the guys we've had in defence this season. I think is the thing I would flag it. It's been blatantly obvious that at the Buffs, that defensively we've been absolutely terrible, and that's something we have to rectify if we're going to stay up. I think up middle to front we're great. We've got good players. We've got Dylan Mack and Thomas Collins. Then we've had Alan McComb in the forward ranks. I think this is going to be the Alan McComb podcast, actually. But certainly from that perspective, we're great going forward. Gavin Miller's found a bit of form. It's really, he was probably a wee bit out of it before, and he's come back in, and he looks great. The guys in the middle of the park are starting to kind of get a solid kind of middle three, and Blair McIntyre, Jordan Stewart, and Ben Lewis. Jordan, unfortunately, injured at the moment, but hopefully be back fairly soon. But guys like Blair McIntyre, absolutely phenomenal for us. I think one of the guys didn't come with any sort of like status, and we also had bigger signings in the likes of Chris Miller, Mark Miller, Kevin Nicol, etc. Dylan Mackin, absolutely. And Blair has been the standout of the guys that have came in the summer. For me, by far and away, one of our best players, if not our best player. Just gives it all, puts his body in the line all the time. One of those guys we talk about who plays through the pain barrier maybe a lot when he is injured, and he just keeps battling on and keeps playing until he's got literally nothing left to give. So yeah, plenty to be positive about, certainly from the Buffs' perspective. We just need to go and get those wins on the board in the league. I think that's important. But obviously in both these cup competitions at West Scotland and the South Challenge, which is obviously interesting and exciting, and we're 2 games away from a final again in the West of Scotland Cup, and I think 3 games away from a final in the South Challenge Cup. So they're obviously positive things for players, and the players will remember their careers by winning trophies, but league safety is a priority for us right now. Absolutely no two ways about it. But yeah, plenty to be positive about. Looking forward to. Certainly March got some good games coming up. Mentioned Maryhill on Saturday. Nice to get an away game to kind of old school kind of junior kind of set up, and we got Atherley in the midweek after that. Then it's a a tough game up at Beith, which don't really want to say much about Beith, to be honest. I'm not talking about them at the moment, but and then we play. We'll hopefully get through the South Challenge Cup game, and then another South Challenge Cup game the other week, or a league game, depending on obviously what happens. And it's Cumbernauld at home on the Friday night to end of the month, which Friday night games at Bus Park are usually interesting. They've got a bigger crowd and people want to come along, so they've got nothing better to do. So it's always good. And Cumbernauld are a team who we'll touch on just shortly, but a bit up and down at the moment as well. So, but yeah, that's the West of Scotland Cup. We'll touch on some of the stuff in the West of Scotland Premier Division, and I'm just trying to find the fixtures. It was Atherley 1, Trin 2, B Juniors 2, Darvel 0, Kilwinning Rangers 1, Irvine Meadow 2, Kirkintilloch Rockroyd 2, Hurrowford United 1, Largs Thistle 4, Petershill 0, Pollock 3, Cumnock Juniors 0. Where will we start there, Chris? I think we'll start with your beloved Largs Thistle.
Brilliant result. Much needed, obviously. I think I retweeted, showing a wee bit of bias there, I think I retweeted through the catch-up the fact that the next few games for Logs are big, and what a result it was, 4-0. Certainly not one I was expecting. In fairness to Petershill, we've called it out, they're kind of swaying a wee bit. One thing I didn't actually notice, which I'm still curious about, is if Darren Miller played, because, I mean, surely that's against rules. No?
So I think, on that point, it's an interesting topic that, for context, anyone who doesn't know, Darren Miller has played for Darvel.
Do you want me to do it?
On you go.
So, Darvel, Benburb, Pollock, Darvel, St Cadix, Petershill.
Right, so we can take out the Benburb one, because that was a loan move from...
Does that still not count? I thought
so loans don't count, right?
Right.
But also, I know where you're coming from on that point about Darren and the fact he has played multiple teams and transferred back and forth.
The FIFA rule, I think, is you can only be signed up to 3 clubs a season.
So by all accounts, it doesn't apply in
non-league
professional.
Right. Okay.
So
I did wonder about that.
In the tier 6. So I think when everyone saw Darren move for the,
I'm not trying to do Darren in, by the way. I'm just curious. I was like everyone else.
I think everybody had the same thoughts. It's like, how can you do this? I mean, I don't understand.
Because it's got to be a record, Ben. It's got to be a record.
He has moved for transfer and transfers, and as I understand it, transfer fees potentially as well. And by all accounts, I don't know enough about the exacts, but I think there has been actual transfers rather than loans. Loans don't count regardless, so you can jump about loan to loan if you wanted all year. That's totally fine. But yeah, I don't really know what's going on there, to be honest, because it seems like he's only at a team for a couple of weeks. I think one of the teams was at 2 weeks or something like that. Then he moved on. So I don't know enough about what's happened there, but I guess he's probably coming towards the end of his career and probably wanting to play, and if he's not going to get the game time, then he's probably just looking to get games, perhaps. I don't know enough about him, or don't know personally enough to know what's going on. So I guess Petershill need good players, and Darren Miller is a good player, and he'll be a guy to sign that will help them out in the battle to try and stay up. Certainly,
it's going to be a tough one, but Brown is out for Largs. I'm not oversell it, obviously, because I've got a bit of a bias.
Talking about signings though, what about Largs signing your man Will Sewell back?
I missed that.
Yeah,
I totally missed that.
Have you? Yeah, he left. It was announced just before the game on Saturday. A permanent deal back to Largs from Stenhousemuir.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that.
Like that.
Honestly, I saw the result. I never saw that.
He was on the bench, I think.
Right, that's probably where I've missed it then. Oh, wait, hold on.
Well, obviously, brother George has moved to Cumbernauld, so there's only one Sewell now on the bench. Rather than having the W and the G, which usually distinguish who.
That's amazing.
That's a great move for Largs, and probably what they need right now is somebody.
I can't believe I missed that, Ben. Honestly,
I'm just surprised he's went back to Lags, but obviously he loves the club. It's his home team, and fair play to him. But like, I mean, he's probably the kind of guy that Darvel could do with right now. Like, let's be honest, they're struggling to score. Pollock, teams like that, maybe even Auchinleck, teams that could do a good centre forward. And well, no question about it, he is that. And it's a great move for Lags to get him back. It's surprised didn't stick out to Stenny, but I guess from Stenny's perspective, he was a Swifty signing. Gary Naismith's come in there, maybe not going to give him the game time or rate him as highly. I don't know, but
the issue, Will's still quite young, and I always feel like SPFL teams they tend not to give the young guys a chance, really, do they? They want experienced campaigners so they can go and win league titles or stay clear of relegation. I always find that there's so many wasted youth players at SPFL clubs, and it's such a shame. But Will will get his chance again.
Absolutely.
And thanks for telling me that, because now I'm going to move him over to Largs on FM. So if I can, obviously, I might be again a bit late in the day, but we'll see if I can get that done. I can't believe I missed it. Honestly, I'm astonished that I missed that. I did see the result, but obviously, it's one of those things, as I said earlier, way earlier in the podcast. Always too much going on at non-league that there's bound to be something you missed. That was a big one though, Ben. I would have found that out.
I'm surprised with given your love for the Largs Thistle. I thought you'd have been all over that one, but
I saw the result and everything. I saw what they tweeted and everything before it. So yeah, it's just one of those. There's too many clubs to follow.
There you go. You'll know about it for next time. The other games we're going to talk about in Pollock 3, Cumbernauld Juniors now. Pollock, a team gonna very much up and down. I mean, we put them last week, beat 3-0, and I didn't see a team there that I would have said we're going to go out and hand out 3-0 wins. 3-0 defeats to teams. And Maxie's obviously come in there and he's doing a bit of Stuart Maxwell. I hate people calling people by nicknames. I should know better. I refer to Swifty as Swifty. That's Stephen Swift for anyone who didn't realise. And yeah, I think Pollock are a team that will be better for next season. I think that's no doubt about it. They've got the finances there, the budget to go and buy players, bring in players, and Stuart Maxwell will build his own squad. He's already started doing that. You can see that from what he's doing. He's think there's guys here that will be moving out. And from Cumbernauld are toiling. I think that's the best way to describe Cumbernauld now. They're struggling to get wins on the board. I listened to Brian McGinty's interview, and he was asked about being kind of positive, any positive taking. Just like no, there isn't really, because
I like
we lost the game, and that's I think that's to the stage of the season. You've got to think like that. I think that's important. That you want to get wins on the board, and obviously they're still in cup competitions as well, and they've got the kind of positive things to look at, but. Certainly, when you're not winning games, it must be tough to fall.
We called it out, Ben. We called it out a few times with teams like that. There's things to take, blah blah blah. When you've lost 4-5-0 and you've lost maybe 3, 4, 5 games in a row, it's like, come on, there's no positives. I like that from Brian.
Yeah, I think they'll come good. They've got the good players. I think they've struggled by the looks of it with injury. I think you could have squad and kind of. Maybe it looks like maybe a kind of makeshift defence, players maybe playing out of position and things like that. That always doesn't help. I know how that feels at the bus. I think we've had about 10 different combinations at the back this season, and that's not good for your team. But Cumbernauld will strengthen. They'll go again next year. And they'll be a team towards the top. I don't doubt next year. I think the important thing for them last season was to get out of that relegation zone, which they done, and Brian done well. And yeah, next season is going to be interesting. I think in the Premier Division.
And not to confuse Jamie Barclays. I mean, one's a midfielder, the other guy's a goalkeeper. I mean, you should know better.
Somebody tagged that into it. I can't remember who that was, but yeah, fair play. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think we're going to touch on the top end of the table now with Beith beating Darvel 2-0. Where do we start there? I think
I'll start there, Ben, because I've got to apologise to you.
Okay.
One actually, just before I do this, I'm not going to hype Will Sewell up too much because he's a Chelsea fan and we've got Chelsea today. So I'll hype you up a wee bit next week. Well, when we're not playing yous. But no, that's a brilliant transfer. I'm really surprised I missed that. But yeah, so I watched Sam North's video. I'm not massive on vlogs, as you know, but I fancied watching the game because he was at Beith versus Darvel, and yeah, apparently you were right. The Beith is the right way of saying it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're joking. Sorry.
Because a woman, Sam spoke to a woman and said, "Is it beef or beef? Beef." Oh, sorry, it's hard to say. Beef or beef? And she said, "Oh, I hate people that say beef." Blah blah blah. And you know what was weird though about it, and this is what I like about. I said I don't really like vlogs and stuff, but I do like how Sam does it in terms of the history of the club and all that sort of stuff. But apparently, what I found was strange was that it used to be called Hill of Beef, and we've got Hill of Beef in Fife, so to make it even more confusing. But yeah, apparently Beef.
I don't know if that's a thing. Is that definitely the case? I don't know if that is.
Well, I don't know. The people he was speaking to it seemed like they were saying Beef, like
no, no, absolutely. I agree with the Beith comment. How you pronounce it? Absolutely. People.
Oh, you mean the Hill of Beef thing?
I don't know if that's 100% correct.
It was on a board or something.
All right, okay. I've not watched it yet, but
yeah. But that's crazy that there's a Hill of Beef and then a Hill of Beef.
Yeah.
Potentially, obviously.
Good to. I'll take that. I'll take that receipt. Just can we, for out of context, people watching, can we clip that bit about Ben being right? That'll be fun.
As for the game, I did watch the highlights. You've probably got things to say on it as well, Ben. But I will say, first goal, Andy Monk hits it against the Darvel player. It kind of comes back off him. Kind of fortunate. When you're lucky, you're lucky. I think it was quite fortunate. He did have to rinse another Darvel defender and slot home, and he done it brilliantly well deserved. Carlo Monti scored an absolute peach from God knows how 30 yards out or something for the second. To me, Darvel just looked toothless. A lot of their set plays were just awful. I think they did hit the woodwork or the post or something at one point, but I reckon, from my point of view on Darvel, they've probably had so much media attention over the last few weeks. I don't think there'll be some players that are used to it in that squad, I would imagine, but certainly as a club, probably not used to the attention. And I wouldn't say it's probably went to their head, but I would say on those occasions you have to take your feet, get your feet on the ground and say, look, I've said it in the last podcast, you've not won a West of Scotland title yet, so and I think that's affected them. I think the cup games have affected them. The media attention's affected them. Mick, a lot of people are obviously. I think sometimes with Mick, I think it's unfair because he was very successful at the amateur level as a manager. So he's had success before Darvel. A lot of people are thrown, obviously. I think someone had said on Sports, Darvel beating Aberdeen's not a miracle because they're a money team and all that sort of nonsense. But it's like, come on, it's still Aberdeen and it's still Darvel. In fairness to Mick, I think he's aware of these issues anyway. But when he was appearing on Open Goal and Sports Scene, I don't think that helps things. I think it takes attention away from the training pitch or whatever. And it's not a criticism of Mick. I just think it's just an observation of sometimes you have to realise, like, right, I don't need this added pressure or scrutiny. I need to get myself on the training pitch, and I think they have had injuries as well, and they brought in a boy on loan as well. So, but yeah, to me, they just look toothless at the moment, going through a really bad spell. And Beith, do I think they'll win the West of Scotland? Are they 7 points clear, something like that? I think it's 7.
7 points clear, yeah.
Yeah, 7 points clear. If they don't get injuries, it's still too early in the season to tell, but the thing that worries me about the likes of Beith and other teams like that are the fact that if they get an injury to a key player, it's going to be difficult, whereas Darvel have the depth. Can they win it? Of course they can, they're there at the moment, so there's no kind of stopping them at the moment. I think Auchinleck have so many games, but yeah, fair play, great result for Beith. Darvel just need to pick up as soon as possible. 2 bad results, and I'll move over to you, Ben, to finish up on your thoughts on
that. For the start, I think I don't have a lot to say about B either. They're obviously top of the table. They're playing well. That's excellent. I mean, nobody's foreseen that happen. Given where they were, they're lucky to stay out, not get relegated. And yeah, obviously they're going through a good bit of form, and I think they're still to see they're probably their blip in the season. They haven't really had a blip in the season. If they can continue that, then fair play. But not dwell too much on them. I think when it comes to Darvel, I think you're spot on about the keeping your feet on the ground kind of mentality. It must also be quite hard to come from that high of beating Aberdeen and to come back to that level and be like not, so what's the right word, the right face here, but not think you're better the other teams. That must be difficult regardless of who it was, and that's not a dig at Darvel specifically. Obviously Darvel, there's a perception of them as a club beyond the league that that's how they are in the West Scotland anyway. But any team, if you went from the high of beating Aberdeen to then probably the come down of getting beat off Athley that next weekend, then building yourself back up for a game against Falkirk to then get convincingly beaten against a team like Falkirk, to then go and play on Saturday was against Glenafton, was it? I can't remember now, but they lost 2 games in a spin now. And I think the thing about Darvel, I would say, is defensively they've been weak all season. That's not new for Darvel, and I think the problem they're having now is that if they're not scoring, then they're not going to be winning games, because defensively they're always going to lose maybe 1, maybe 2. I mean, we put 3 past them last season, for example. This season, for example, I think we put 2 past them in the game before that as well. Other teams have managed to score a couple against Darvel in most games, but they obviously are going out and putting 4, 5, 6 past other teams. So defensively, they obviously have their weaknesses. They brought in Andy McDonald from Peterhead, who I thought would have been a good option to show that. However, they let David Syme go out on loan to Tranent, which for me is a strange one. They spent obviously a lot of money on him from ourselves last season. Obviously, Syme has had a bad injury last season and it didn't play much of this season up until now. But you've got to be thinking to yourself, he's one of your top defenders, and you're letting him go on loan to a bottom end team that like Tranent. They're obviously still kind of probably a bit safer, but certainly still in amongst that kind of bottom half. But the thing that Darvel can do, I think, is go and spend money and buy a player if they need it. If they need a striker, for example, that's going to energise the rest of the strikers. And I think their problem, I think, up front is they're all off the boil at the same time. Whereas in spells, they've had different strikers doing bits, and they're not getting that. Just now, off the back of that game, they've also lost like a guy like Truesdale's injured at the moment, which when you've seen him against Aberdeen, he was unreal. Even against Falkirk, before he got injured in that game, he was looking great and really wants to play, and it makes a massive difference. But they'll have that depth. I think the important bit to reiterate about Darvel is they do have that depth. You look at their bench most weeks, and they've got League 1, League 2 players just absolutely fit like all over that bench. And the important bit will be is if they do get an injury, for example, then they will be able to go out and spend money and go and get a player to replace that player that will slot in perfectly into that team. I would have thought, or they can bring a guy like Syme back on loan if they've got a defender that goes out. I think Megan is injured at the moment, but
there is a weird sort of dynamic at the moment, actually, because if you're on Lithgow Rose, who would you rather play, Darvel or Beith Juniors? I'd rather play Beith. Kind of similar with the Lowland League at the moment, because if you're Spartans, would you rather play Bonnyrigg Rose or Albion Rovers? I mean, I would probably rather play Albion Rovers than Bonnyrigg because they know the level, blah, blah, blah. So there's a bit of a weird dynamic going on at the moment with the levels, really.
Just to plot twist it a little bit, if Beith do win the league, will they be licensed? to actually get
I
promoted.
never even thought that. Yeah, I never even thought
There's
that.
they don't have the license as it stands, and I'm not too sure where they're at with licensing applications.
Well
for
done,
example.
Lithgow.
There's no floodlights, for example, in place, which obviously that's obviously the physical element of getting the ground up to standard.
I've not had to think about that in years, Ben. So thanks for reminding me.
That's something that I think will be for another podcast as we see what happens down the line. But yeah, I'm not too sure from what. Firstly, from a facilities perspective, and obviously, I think the important bit from the licensing perspective is all the paperwork and admin that's required to be done off the park to get that done as well. So, don't know where they're at with all that stuff. So, whether or not they can do it, I don't know. I don't imagine they'd have been thinking about it at the start of the season.
No,
it's not something you can do. These are not things you can do overnight, So, yeah,
that's a really good point.
Interesting one to see. I think we haven't talked about Auchinleck yet. When it comes to league, we obviously hold my hands up here. I wrote them off pretty much at the start of the season. Not start of the season. I think at the time it was absolutely justified because one, they were going through a bad spell. Secondly, Darvel, we did not foresee them dropping points, I think, at all against anyone really. Certainly not to the likes of Atherley, Glenafton, etc. That wasn't something we thought would happen. So, given where B they're at, they're obviously they're in form and doing well. So maybe the more likely team to drop points against them. But Auchinleck have 6 games in hand on B and are 15 points behind. So they can win their games in hand. They can absolutely go get right in amongst it. Maybe mention Clydebank, maybe not completely out of it, I think, which is, I mentioned earlier on, but fair play to Gordon Moffat and the job he's done there because he's turned it around immensely and they're looking like a team with potential. I think they've also got a bit more work to do and have to go and get results in these bigger games, and I think that'll be the important bit for them is beating the likes of Darvel and B, the Auchinleck, Pollock, etc. If they're still going to play them. Pretty much it from us on the official Catchup podcast. I know we like to talk about the boxing now and again, Chris, so just give me a quick one. Jake Paul or Tommy Fury tonight?
Jake Paul, I think. I actually, the reason I actually think Jake Paul is a really good boxer. And my whole opinion, sorry, I know we're way over time, but I said it before, I think, that I really respect Jake Paul as a boxer. I think he's a decent boxer. And one thing I will say, though, is my opinion of the Paul brothers, Logan as well, has changed dramatically. I actually do think they are quite talented athletes, well, from what I've seen of them. I think, what is that, Logan in the wrestling now, WWE or something? Yeah. And he actually looks the part. So, yeah. When I first saw them, I was like, what the hell is this? Why do kids like this? But no, I actually respect them. I think they do have a lot of talent, athletic wise. So, I do. I've seen a lot of Jake Paul's fights. Probably less familiar with Tommy Fury, but I think Jake Paul could do it. Like, I wouldn't surprise me, but I'll go with Jake Paul, considering that I do rate him as a boxer.
I'm going the other way. Tommy Fury all day long, man. I don't understand this at all.
I don't like the whole YouTuber versus
the getting behind
boxer.
the getting behind Jake Paul thing. Firstly, for boxing, Tommy Fury has to win. Like, for boxing itself, like, he has to go and win that fight. The other thing for me for Tommy Fury's missus had a baby 4 weeks ago or something like that, and I think he's by all accounts barely seen the kid because he's been training.
Who's he? He's going to be that Molly May
from Love Island, which called the kid Bambi, which is an interesting one.
I remember that.
So, yeah, Tommy Fury has to win. If he's put that on if he's took that time away from the early days of his child's birth and went away from his partner to go and fight, he's got to go and win. He has to, no doubt about it, he has to go and win that fight. But I think Tommy Fury is a good boxer. I don't think he hasn't been challenged, but neither has Jake Paul. I think that's the thing. Jake Paul has fought a lot of washed up, has been type boxers. This will be a proper test, and from what I expect from Tommy Fury, it's a knockout win. So we'll catch up on that next week. But thanks for listening, watching, whatever it is. Do get us on Twitter at Official Catchup, all our social media channels, and subscribe, like, etc. on YouTube, Spotify, all the good stuff. And now we're back. We'll be back next week. I'm promising you that. I've got plenty to say on plenty of stuff. So we'll be here for the title runnings all across the west of Scotland, the east of Scotland, the south of Scotland, and of course the Lowland League. But until then, have a good one. Cheers.